afternoon, everybody. It's RT here.
Bruh. All right, just one moment, guys. We're getting set up. We're getting ready to rock and roll. I just need to get this link spread around to a couple of different places, so just bear with me and start talking about shit in just a moment. Okay, now we need labs. All right. So welcome to Shitcoin Church. A little bit later today than than we normally do this, but hey, that's okay. We're all gonna make it. Yeah, AVAX is doing really, really well. Really excited about what's to come in that project. You know, hopefully they can make something of it. You know, we can do something with it. Okay, so of course, here we are, right? We're at the next week, and Avalanche has pulled back a bit. You know, we have Avalanche shitcoins that have pulled back significantly relative to the actual Avalanche token itself. You know, the way I'm seeing this is that, you know, this ecosystem is still very, very young. You have to remember that, for one. And there needs to be more building out that's done. Now, I do think that building is going to come, which is why if you follow me on Twitter, if you're in the Hxro Labs trading pit, you know, I've talked about, and then even on, with Noah and Taki, like, you know, you have to be thinking about, a rotation of quality. Not everything's going to make it. Like, everything will pump, especially if there's not that many options, but not everything's going to make it. You have to, from my perspective, you have to start thinking of this in the sense, like, what's going to catch major tailwinds from growth in the Avalanche ecosystem. And that's why I primarily concentrated to Yak, just because it's non-inflationary. Auto compounders typically put sell pressure on things, but in Yak's case, they actually put buy pressure on things because all of these auto compounders are collecting a fee, which then goes pretty much towards buying Yak, taking that Yak supply off the market. Only 10,000 Yaks ever. So, it has those scarcity properties. Does AVAX or other projects pay me for promotion? No, never have, never will, ever. I'm not always right, but I talk about things that are of interest to me. And I talk about things that I have put my money in. Not to say that you should, but, you're not ever going to hear something from me that I was paid to say. How about that? Or paid to say, lost paid to say, is what I meant to say. Hell no, we're not going to turn off the music. I will turn it down just a bit though. Yeah, we're not going to turn off the music. Yeah, this is, for anybody that wants to know the playlist, this is Skeller Night Drive Part 2. Skeller is an absolute legend. Funk is fucking awesome. And Part 2 came out earlier this month, and it's fucking sick. Especially my favorite song in this mix is coming up next. Not this one, but the next one. It's fucking crazy. Am I still in my 20s? No, I'm not. So, right now, the strongest coin anywhere out of anything is Ethereum, in my opinion. we have this situation where we have Arbitrum launching. There's a lot of hype on that. True layer 2 for Ethereum is a big deal. It's something that's been worked on for a very long time. It's a huge step forward in terms of scalability. So I do think that Ethereum is stealing a bit of this spotlight right now from other things like Avalanche, like Phantom. Of course, if you guys bought all that Phantom hype yesterday, you're absolutely fucking wrecked right now. Very similar to buying the top on Avalanche. It's like down like 50% in a day. Of course, Solana continues to be isolated from most of the rest of the ecosystem, extremely strong. You've got the full power of Alameda and Sam, who just doesn't lose behind it. So I've got my Solana shirt on today in honor of the Solana strength and everything that's going on in that ecosystem. So represent Solana Hxro Network. Our project is being built out in Solana. We're building out the future of decentralized options. Yeah, not to say that Phantom shit didn't fuck, because it too did. It absolutely fucking did. But yeah, this is ape season. So the way I'm looking at the Avalanche ecosystem right now, because that's where I'm primarily exposed, is I'm looking for those opportunities. I'm looking for those blue chips. I'm looking for things that I think are going to perform and continue to perform when this ecosystem really, really starts to get those inflows. Now, I've been bugging that dude on Twitter. Hold on, let me find him, so I can show you guys what I'm talking about. Actually, I'm just gonna go ahead. I'm gonna throw this on the desktop screen. Just a moment. All right, 1 second, guys. Let's get switched over, and then I'm going to talk about what we're going to talk about today. Sam Tabasco dumped his Joe on us. They're farming a shit ton of Joe right now. So, that's part of the reason too, why, if you guys did watch some of my other content, if you guys are in the pit, you follow me on Twitter. One of the reasons why I thought that Yak was probably the best way to survive, a downturn in the AVAX altcoin scene, was because it's not being farmed. And you do have these large opportunistic farmers that are coming in right now, and farming and dumping shit, like Pangolin, like Joe. So just be mindful of that. At least with Yak, like, nobody's farming Yak and dumping it on my fucking head. Which takes a lot of that sell pressure off of the market. All right, so 1 second. Let me get this switched over. Okay. And hold on, a little bit of brain fog right now at the beginning, so just bear with me. Okay. So who is this guy? Nicholas, I don't know how to pronounce that. Nicholas Lemaitre, or I don't know, forgive my Alabama, but it just is what it is. So this guy says for every reference to Avalanche Rush is 10 million in AVAX. So that's something to be mindful of. Of course, we had the Phantom Foundation come out and announce like a $370 million liquidity mining program. The interesting thing that separates the Phantom liquidity mining program from the AVAX liquidity mining program is that Phantom is significantly less liquid in general. And Phantom has actually set aside 10% of the entire supply for their liquidity mining program. And Phantom is approaching this more in terms of developer incentives. There's kind of this chicken and the egg problem here, where AVAX is approaching this problem more in the user sense. Build out the users, and then the developers will come. You've got to build out that strong user base. I do agree with AVAX's approach more than Phantom's approach in this regard. Just because if you think about it, let's say I'm a developer and I want to develop an application, and there's 3 operating systems, okay? And we're talking Windows, we're talking Mac OS, and then we're talking, Linux, or maybe there's this 3rd operating system that's not Linux that's super amazing. It's the best one, but no, it has no users. Why do you guys think that when people build out applications, they build out these applications for Windows, they build out these applications for Mac OS? It's because you don't want to spend your time and your effort building out something for an ecosystem that doesn't have any users. So I do like the fact that Avalanche is putting the users first in this regard, because that's going to set up an environment where developers are going to be eager to come over here and build. Now with Phantom, I believe the way they're doing it is that developers will have to apply for incentives, but they will already have to have built something and already have to have achieved a certain degree of TVL. But they get to determine what the rewards are actually for. Do they want to put them in their pocket? Do they want to distribute them and use that to attract more TVL, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, this guy, Nicholas, says, for every reference, the Avalanche Rush is a $10 million AVAX program. Okay, at the moment of this tweet, we're above $435 million in total value. Now, the interesting thing to note here is AVAX hasn't entered price discovery yet, and when it does, I have no doubt that it's going to $100 plus. At the $100 mark, considering we're looking at 10 million in AVAX, that becomes a $1 billion liquidity mining program that's going live in this ecosystem. So I hope you guys understand just how significant that is and the magnitude of this. And also, one of the strongest fundamental drivers for YAK value, for YAK value, at least in like the near term, is going to be that so maybe YAK doesn't get direct liquidity mining incentives, right? But it's almost like every last bit of these liquidity mining incentives go to YAK, because YAK is going to process so much of this farming activity through auto compounders and things like that. So you just have to understand that, not only is YAK like non-inflationary and these auto compounders put buy pressure on YAK, but we're looking at potentially $1 billion plus in incentives and cash flow that's going to be routed directly through the YAK ecosystem, which is something that's really interesting. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, to apply for the Avalanche native DApp program, okay, that means liquidity mining rewards on shit like Joe, Pangolin. You need to apply as part of the Avalanche Rush. Visit this link below. And so I made the comment that you guys need to slap incentives on Joe and Pangolin stat. If we're waiting on Aave and Curve, we need something to keep us here, and this will do that. The main thing is hey, look, we understand this is super new, this is super fresh. In the meantime, look, we've already had this initial markup. We're having these corrections right now. If you want us to stay around, then you're going to have to pay us to do that. And that's just the honest truth. Otherwise, there's an opportunity cost to being here. So if we have these native rewards, we can sit here, be in good projects, and just farm and chill until Aave and Curve come, until there's more building done, more infrastructure, all of that good shit. So, and then today I said, what's taking so long? And then he says, engineering effort. Is it a plus effort? And he says, nope, just the teams at Pangolin and Trader Joe need to implement the contracts, which is essentially an admission, an announcement that we do have these native AVAX liquidity mining rewards coming to both Joe and Pangolin, which is absolutely fantastic. And I love that as a YAK holder because, once again, any liquidity mining rewards that are given to this system, YAK is getting a piece of that. A percentage of those rewards will flow through the YAK ecosystem. So YAK is a very good place to be. Okay, yeah, badass. So let's have a look at the AVAX chart really quick. And if you'll actually just give me a moment here, I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to convert, and this is something that I said I was going to do earlier. I'm going to convert, potentially convert my AVAX to USDT. So I just want to get in that position to do that. AVAX has, of course, run really, really hard, and while there is a bit of spotlight on Ethereum, this absolutely may pull back just a bit. So in terms of where exactly I would be looking for this to pull back, I think we could just draw some meme lines on this. Now I've got two white lines here, and both of these white lines are pretty important in my opinion. Hold on, let me just go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and cash up and just take the safe route here. And it's not like we're gonna nuke, it's not game over. I'm just going to be real about what is very possible that, you know, could happen right now. So just 1 second, guys. Always use a hardware wallet, of course. If you guys don't have a hardware wallet, I highly recommend getting one. It's pretty much just plug and play, you know, with MetaMask and all of the shit they have set up. Oops. Trade, AVAX, USDT. Let's go back to our hourly view here. Yeah. Oh, let me see if it's worth this, because, you know, I'd incur like 2% slippage. We're looking at a potential like 11% downturn, 10%. That might actually, I don't even think it's worth it. Whatever, fuck it. Okay. So a couple of important things here. You know, AVAX has gone up a lot. You know, we see a lot of strength in Ethereum. You've got Ethereum Layer 2 is launching. So this first white line right here is the quarterly volume weighted average price, and the thicker white line is the yearly volume weighted average price. You know, I'm looking at both of those as probable areas for support. The quarterly VWAP is at about $33 right now, $33.23. The yearly VWAP is at $28.59. So I'm going to be looking at those as areas of support. You know, where exactly this can go before it continues. I have no doubt that eventually, you know, we do see an all-time high here, and I would anticipate that to actually happen in the next maybe month or two. I mean, that's just a bullish chart, you know, and one thing to remember is that, you know, volume weighted average prices and such aside, you know, we do seem to be at a point to where there is support here. If you look at the actual meat of the volume profile, you know, which is a really good way to approximate, you know, where supply and demand areas are actually going to be. You know, the meat actually starts here at about 37. So watching this carefully, watching this closely, of course, and then ready to react. Okay. So in terms of Avalanche, that's pretty much where I'm at. You know, I do think Yak is going to be the strongest player if you are going to be in shitcoins. PFI is another interesting play, and I've got PFI up right over here. Let's see, somewhere. No. Let's get a little GAN fan drawn on PFI. You know, I do think PFI has potential further downside, and I think most of this downside would likely come from downside on AVAX itself. I'm looking at maybe $1.30 for support on PFI. I think that would be a fantastic entry. Still very bullish PFI. You know, haven't been shaving or taking profit on any PFI because I still do want access to the IDOs and shit that are coming on PFI. In just 1 second here, I think we can actually, let's see. Yeah, let's go to Penguin Finance. You know, I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here. This is kind of lit. Ah, you gotta love the wink. You gotta love the wink. So we do have that first PFI IDO coming soon. Of course, I love the epic videos and the branding and all that kind of shit. It's really fucking badass. You know, we still have the arena, which is coming soon for Penguin Finance. You know, they're going to have games and shit going on. So I like that. Of course, you got the little penguin here. I don't know what he's about to do or what his end game is. One moment, guys. Somebody's calling me. Yeah. I don't know who the fuck that is. Okay. And then we also have this Emperor shit too for Penguin Finance, and I don't know what that is. It's some other kind of game. But once again, you know, for P5, I've got this GAN fan drawn. You know, it's a really, really nice fit. You can see all these levels are really, really accurate. I would be looking for the bottom of the fan, like for the God tier entry. I don't know if I'm going to get it or not. Let's look at some of these other coins in the so they're doing NFTs too and shit like that. Here's the thing, PFI isn't necessarily an auto compounder or anything like that, although it does have those. I'm more interested in PFI for the gamified DeFi aspects, as well as the what am I trying to say, the launch pad. Okay, let me exit out of that, and we'll swap out one epic music for another. Okay, so Joe is something that I'm really, really interested in, and this is what I've been looking at on Joe. You know, a lot of times when you have these, you know, mega parabolic advances, the absolute best entry is going to be back here at this 236 level, and you can see I draw this little box here. Now, something that's interesting on Joe does have some bullish divergence here showing at this 0.382 fib level. It's on the hourly time frame. You know, I still would like to bide my time on Joe. You have to remember that Joe is being farmed here. So Joe has this sell pressure, and in order for Joe to really, really, really ramp, we're going to need some serious buy pressure to come into the market. Just in my opinion, it doesn't have that native buy pressure like Yak does. So I am watching somewhere in this region to load up on Joe, biding my time. I think that'd be a fantastic entry. And then just looking at, you know, where exactly this would put us, that's around a 75% retracement from the highs. Something interesting to think about, at least. But I am very interested in Joe. I think Joe has established itself as the leader in the exchange game over here. But with that being said, I really, really don't want to be buying Joe because it is a farm token, unless I get that absolute killer best entry. Let's look at some other things in this ecosystem. So this is a bit interesting, and I'm kind of convinced that BenKey is just like an absolute cursed token. You know, I did draw some memes out on here. We are at the bottom of the channel, and if we actually look at this in terms of fib retracements as well, you know, we can see some nice confluence here between this 0.236 level, you know, and the bottom of the channel, and there's some horizontal levels and shit going on as well. With that being said, you know, you need to understand that while Key, you know, is extremely undervalued, you know, based on comparative metrics, it does seem to just have no utility. I haven't heard any plans of utility, and it does seem to just be getting farmed into the dirt right now. I've tried to buy Key a couple of times now, and I think I just kind of end up getting owned every single time I try to do it. But just in terms of pure technicals, you know, if I wasn't worried about AVAX dumping, if I wasn't worried about anything here, this is where I would be looking at entering into this BenKey token. Let's take a look at Snowball. Yeah, I really don't like this, what's going on in Snowball. I think Snowball is one, or Snob is one of the weaker looking tokens here in this ecosystem right now. One of the issues with Snowball is that the way that they have carved out their moat, I mean, they're just an auto compounder. They've got this stablecoin vaults, and that was going to be like their thing. But the way I see this, you know, Curve, who is the absolute guide of stablecoin swaps and stablecoin liquidity, is on its way to the Avalanche ecosystem. So I think that while initially, before that news was announced, Snowball had that stablecoin AMM as kind of the differentiating factor, that made it, that differentiated it between the other auto compounders, PFI, Yak, and the lot. But at this point, now it's just an auto compounder. That auto compounder is inferior to Yak, and their kind of flagship product, which is this stablecoin swapping system, Curve is coming, and I just don't think you can compete with that. So I'm not interested in re-entering Snowball just because of those things, unless Snowball does something wild, something to differentiate itself. I really want to be patient here, and I want to wait for the best projects and the best opportunities, just because there is so much coming. There's no need for me to just say, hey, we still have these 10 projects and I'm just gonna fucking ape into everything. There's no reason at all for me to say anything like that. Let's look at some other interesting things. Elk, of course, Elk has been pretty strong. Elk is working on this cross-chain bridging technology. I'm not too sure yet what to make of this. Is it a shitcoin? Is it not? I will say, relative to some other things, it does look like this is holding up pretty well. Is this a buy right here? Is it a sell? I'll be totally honest with you guys, I don't know. But if your technology, if what's going to make your project is the fact that you're a bridge, you're competing with absolute giants, you're competing with Nerve, you're competing with Seller Network, I'm just not aware that that's something that's possible. And I would draw a lot of parallels between the situation that Elk's in to the situation that Snowball is in. It's just like, how are you going to compete with these other bridges that are really fucking advanced, that are really badass, when you're trying to do the same thing? I want to look for things, and I want to focus on things that have something that no one else has, that has something that's unique. So in PFI, all that kind of shit. Let's look at Avalanche. Of course, Avalanche being a launch pad. Launch pads always perform really well. Really similarly to Joe and some of the other things here, we do see a bit of what you could call bullish divergence here on lower time frames for Avalanche. But you have to remember, this ran really hot. Right here, we are looking at this lower high and probably, I'd say, lower low coming. Avalanche, I do think, is probably one worth keeping your eye on. So let's go ahead and throw some fibs and shit on it. Maybe we'll be able to map out what the absolute king level entry would be. And once again, I'm in no rush to buy these shit coins. It's better to be waiting for these opportunities. And when that opportunity, if that opportunity presents itself, that's when you want to have the balls to act. Because the thing is right now, you still look at this, right? And you go, oh, yeah, it's still up a lot, right? That's cool. We're going to make it. It's going to be okay. But when it gets down here, if it gets down here, then that's a scary looking chart, right? And that's what I talk about, or why I talk about having the balls to actually execute when the situation actually makes sense. So looking at Avalanche right here, Avalanche, however you want to pronounce it, I am looking at around the $1.70 level. That is that 0.236 retracement, and that would put us somewhere in this region. And once again, this chart is going to be scary looking when we get down here. It does take a lot of balls to execute and buy on these things, because there's going to be a lot of people that could be sick at their stomach, by the time we get down to this level. Mr. Mace, you can draw fibs however you want, brother. Here's the thing. It depends on if you're looking at upside and downside and projections and those types of things. But if I want, I can absolutely draw fibs this way and then use these upside fib levels to calculate potential upside targets. And you do understand too, I hope, that with fibs, it's the same levels, whether you draw it the way I did or whether you draw it upside down, or, in my opinion, in the situation or whatever. Come on, boys, nicotine is needed. let's keep looking at these coins. Sherpa. Let's take a look at Sherpa. So Sherpa is the Tornado Cash fork and the Avalanche ecosystem. Of course, you know, significantly down bad, if you will. Just like everything else, you know, we can go ahead and draw these fib levels on Sherpa, and we're looking at around $1.80 on Sherpa, I think. The issue I have with Sherpa is, what the fuck's the point of it? You know, it's kind of just a useless shit token right now. Okay, so you're a Tornado Cash fork and Avalanche. You know, I don't necessarily, that doesn't necessarily get me that excited about buying this. You know, really strong first initial impulse, but you know, for the time being, I just don't see this as having much utility or anything like that. And I do want to focus on those coins that are going to catch these huge tailwinds coming into this ecosystem. So just be mindful of that. So AVAX. Let's talk about a couple of meme coins, okay? Because the meme coins, a lot of them don't look good. So here we have AVAX. You know, of course, AVAX from the lows on August 30th has been an extremely strong performer. We are actually looking at, for anybody that bought those lows, a nice 4x since then. You know, we do have this break in structure. A few things, you know, and a few things that I've noticed with AVAX, and a few things that I've come to conclusions with, you know, regarding my research that are important for a meme coin to actually thrive. One, AVAX has extremely deep liquidity. If you can see over here, $2.5 million worth of liquidity for this token, okay, which is absolutely huge relative to the market cap. You can approximate the market cap if you just see this number right here. You take that and roughly divide it by 2, and you can see, you know, we're looking at 0.000, you know, tons of O's, right? And then 13945. If let's just call that 14, we'll divide it by 2. This is about a $7 million market cap meme token that has that's a reflector that auto generates liquidity, and already has $2.5 million worth of liquidity. Now, why is that liquidity important? Well, it's because if you look at some of the other meme tokens, the liquidity is not nearly as deep as it is on AVAX. What that means is that your average pleb can come in, can buy 100 AVAX worth of it, and then can have a significant portion of that supply. And because they have a significant portion of that supply, they're then able to influence the market. So by having that deep liquidity, it's kind of like anti-pleb technology, and that plebs can come in and they can buy and sell all day, but at the end of the day, they're not really going to affect the way that the chart looks, you know, which is super important. You don't want a guy that has the power to do that, you know, to where he's all in on something like, you know, some kind of dog coin or something, and can just fucking dump it 50% at any time he wants. So I do think that anti-pleb tech is very important here. And I do like the fact that this is a $7 million market cap. In terms of a meme coin, it's got thick enough liquidity and a low enough market cap to where this could do multiples, and it doesn't even have to go to that high of a market cap. Let's say it only does 5x from here. And the biggest market cap AVAX ever sees is $35 million, right? Well, here's the thing. It's liquid enough to where I can come in with some kind of size and I can get my 5x, and, you know, I can get the fuck out. Like, it doesn't have to go to $100 million. It doesn't have to go to $200 million, although that would be nice. But you can see here, you know, that we did have this initial capitulation, and basically my thesis is that this community is comprised of extremely autistic, extremely strong holders at this point. If you look from the highs to the lows, we're talking a 94% retracement, which was enough to test literally everybody holding this coin, and everybody that did, of course, is enjoying this upside right here. I think everybody that needed to be shaken out was able to be shaken out. Now, one more thing that I will look at concerning this, we're going to have a look at the Explorer. And this is something that's important when I talk about anti-pleb technology, when I talk about distribution. in a very short period of time, okay, less than a week, we managed to get 1,853 holders for this token. You can see here, this is the burn address, and this is why I do divide that number by 2, like I was talking about. Over 50% of the supply is in this burn address. The second address right here is the actual liquidity pool. So you can see another 10% of the supply is actually liquidity for this pairing. And then after that, you need to look at the holders. Now, who are the actual holders that can do damage to this market? They can actually move this token. Well, we're looking at them right here. This guy, 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 this guy. You know, really anybody with over 100 billion of this has sufficient ability to maybe move this market 10 to 20% in either direction. But see, that's the secret sauce here. You don't have one single holder here that can nuke this to zero out of the top holders, okay, which is very important. And the second thing to note here is that when you start looking at the distribution beyond, you know, these guys with over 100 billion of this token, you start to notice that it's very well distributed. None of these people have the ability to wreck this chart. None of them. And if you start looking back, you can see that the distribution is absolutely fantastic on this. Absolutely fantastic the entire way through. So that's kind of my thesis behind this. And just in terms of meme coins, you know, for ShibX, I still do think that's the best dog money. You know, the main issue that I found with ShibX, you know, especially after this market downturn, is that nobody wants to put in any work. I had asked the community, you know, hey, any large holders, do you want to join in beefing up the liquidity on this pairing and making this more resilient? And literally nobody stepped up, and I got dumped on, is what happened. So when we're talking about the actual distribution of these things and why that's so important, this is exactly why. I can go look at the distribution of ShibX, you know, which has over twice the amount of holders, okay, that AVAX does. But if I actually go look at the token holders list and I look at this, look at the distribution here. You got this guy with 5% of the supply. This one dude has the power to take this market to fucking zero. Same with this guy, 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 same with this guy. All it does, all that needs to happen, one of these guys says, I want to get out, and it's fucking GG. Which is part of the reason why I do think that in order for SHIB to actually really fucking go to the moon, these guys need to get the fuck out of Dodge. You know, they've got to be gone. So you're looking at, you know, this right here, and you're looking at this dude right here with, you know, 5% of the whole fucking supply, right? And then I go actually look at the liquidity on this, and I'm looking at $500,000 worth of liquidity. That one dude controls the entire destiny of this market, and that's a really, really, really dangerous situation to be in. When we go look at something like AVAX, once again, just to reaffirm how important the distribution of tokens is, you can look at this top guy who only has 2.8% of the tokens for this. And if you look at the liquidity, you can see a huge difference here. Not only in that, I believe, let's see, I believe these two things are at a similar market capitalization right now. But the main difference here is that we're looking at 5 times the amount of liquidity, which makes this friendly to whales. So in terms of a meme coin, I do think that I'm going to be going with AVAX. Just in terms of the distribution, the amount of liquidity, we had this initial like strong hands test. Anybody that was going to sell got the fuck out at negative 94%. So I'm excited to see what's coming for this, holding, providing some liquidity, seeing what's going to happen. Now, I want to take a break from talking about AVAX and all this stuff, and of course there's Solana Ignition, you know, which I'm going to briefly touch on as well. Solana is absolutely a builder community. I think it's one of the best builder communities out there. If you're looking at Solana Ignition, I believe it is a hackathon. which means more fucking building. Of course, what was the biggest issue when we got over to the AVAX ecosystem? Well, it was a blessing and a curse in that we only had really 10 good quality projects to buy, right? But at the same time, there was really nothing else. Once those 10 projects had run their course, once bridge flows stalled, there was nothing else to do. There's nothing else for us to fucking do. So, it became a situation where there was no really like rotation possible. It became an opportunity cost situation, and people did go to Phantom. People did go to Solana. People did take money out to participate in the Mutant Ape Mint. So with Solana, I don't think that the real Solana rush has even started yet in terms of a Solana summer, Solana ecosystem rush. I'm definitely eyeing a lot of projects in the Solana ecosystem because they are building out everything first before they get people over there. And earlier, I did speak about the chicken and the egg again. Okay, just one moment, guys. So one thing that is really going to be interesting, when it comes to Solana, is just the fact that this ecosystem has taken this development first approach, and they kind of have to. Reason being is that it's a lot more difficult to engineer on Solana than it is on EVM. Just because it's a lot more difficult to find guys that are Rust guys than it is to find guys who are EVM guys. And in direct opposition to these EVM ecosystems, something like Solana doesn't benefit from years and years and years of research and building on EVM that's already taken place. Everything over there has to be built from the ground up. So I think it's going to be very interesting, when we do get eventually a very large migration of people over to the Solana ecosystem, because they're going to have so much built out. They're going to have so much ready. They're going to have so much to do. And I don't think that we're going to find ourselves in a situation similar to that situation that we find ourselves in right now with AVAX, to where you're so early to where you kind of run out of things to do. So I do think that when that Solana ecosystem picks up significant momentum, that's something that would be really, really smart to pay attention to, because when there is so much to do, that keeps people entertained, that keeps people over there. Yeah, Phantom nuked really hard. You got to remember, Phantom is not nearly as liquid as AVAX, is the thing. And what I heard from a lot of people that did go out and try out that Phantom experience, because I'm definitely interested in Phantom, like 100% right now, just because once again, I do love EVM. And secondly, like I said earlier, you want to be an opportunity maximalist. Like, if Phantom's going to have these incentives, depending on how those incentives are distributed, when they're distributed, what they're distributed to, that's going to be opportunity there. So keeping an eye on the Phantom ecosystem. I still haven't done enough research to actually differentiate, what the blue chips are there, what the great projects are there. But I do think that it's an interesting idea to be exposed over there. Of course, Phantom is nuking, and all those Phantom projects are nuking right now because they just ran too high. One thing that happened is some people did bridge over from AVAX to Phantom, okay? But the issue is they bridged at the top. Because while everything was going batshit in the AVAX ecosystem and we had all this hype over here, Phantom was kind of catching an echo pump from that, because people were speculating and betting on the fact that, hey, maybe there's going to be incentives announced for here too, and then people will come over. But the difference is, once again, that those Phantom incentives are more developer focused, where the AVAX ecosystem incentives are more user focused. So I do think that that's important to note. It's not like Phantom's just going to be giving out potentially over $1 billion in free yield over the coming months, just like AVAX is. So I do think that AVAX is going to be a stronger mover in terms of ecosystem, and then just in terms of the layer 1 itself, than Phantom, because of those things. But once again, we are in a situation to where the momentum has absolutely stalled here. You need to be biding your time. You need to be keeping an eye out on these protocols. You need to be waiting for those absolute baller entries. And if you're not going to get a baller entry, just sit out, because the opportunities are going to be extremely abundant. Now, I don't know if anybody came to my talk yesterday with Jeebus, okay? Securities joined for a bit, Gainsey joined for a bit. I really enjoyed that talk. I was very glad that everybody was able to keep it civil, was able to present, I think, compelling arguments on both sides as to, you know, the potential NFT bubble, as to the potential for this NFT bubble to continue. One thing that I did realize after that conversation and after speaking with Altsmang, who's a friend of mine, was that I really needed to have more experiences in the NFT space as a crypto guy to kind of see what it's about, okay? Oh, hold on, we didn't even look at the Yak chart, shit. Okay, so here's the Yak chart I have. I don't think Yak is going to go back to this 236 just because we don't have that pressure. We don't have inflationary pressure. Nobody's farming this token. In fact, everybody that's farming everywhere else in this ecosystem is putting buy pressure on the Yak token. And that's why I think you've seen Yak be a stronger performer right now in opposition to a lot of these other projects. But here's what I do have drawn out. A couple of levels that are of interest. This 0.5 level and the 382 level. I'd really like to see Yak retrace down here to around $6,000. I think that would be a fantastic buy, and I'd probably add to my position there. Now, let's talk about this NFT shit. So once again, I am, of course, branded as the NFT hater guy, right? I am branded as the guy that doesn't get it. I'm the guy that, you know, that doesn't understand. It's not a part of this movement. And in a lot of ways, you know, I realized that Jeebus did make very compelling arguments yesterday, and I thought it would be silly for me to continue in this, you know, in this space without having my own experience. So what I decided to do at the recommendation of a friend, he pointed out this thing called Loot a couple of days ago. And the thing about Loot was, at first glance, it just made me angry. It made me extremely angry. You know, why did it make me angry? Because people are paying thousands of dollars for this. People are paying thousands of dollars for a fucking black tile with words on it. Okay? So I was like, dude, what the fuck? Like, this is fucking ridiculous. You know, like, how is this even a thing? But then I started to realize, you know, that the fact that I am so angry about this probably means that it's going to go to the fucking moon, right? You know, because I think right now that I'm 100% right that NFTs are in euphoria. You know, we're in this mania environment. And I think that one thing about being in this mania environment is that, this is differentiated between some of the other NFTs in the regard that it is so shit at the base layer, right? It is absolute absurdity. But in a mania environment, you know, maybe that's like a part of what makes it art. Maybe that's a part of what makes it special, is the fact that it is so absurd and that so few people can see the art in that and that they can understand that. This is fucking absolutely absurd. If you look at some of the most value NFTs, as SOJ Live is saying in chat, like CryptoPunks, they are worth an absolute killing, an absolute fortune. Same thing with those Ethereum rocks. It's absolutely fucking absurd, but hey, they're worth a lot of money. Why? Probably because it's so absurd. Probably because it does make people so angry, and a lot of people can't see the art now. So I did decide that I was going to get a divine robe, which you can see here. These are just loot boxes. They have like this kind of arbitrary equipment in the box. And this is the robe, okay? This is a linen robe. But there's these things called divine robes. And if you have a divine robe through Open Land or whatever it's called, Collab Land, you can actually join this top secret NFT society. So I immediately saw that as like the big dog club, right? Anybody that wants to be an NFT flexer, that wants access to the inside information, what's being built, etc., is going to want one of these divine robes. And that's like a driver for demand. So the first thing I did was I went out and I bought a divine robe. Just one of these tiles that basically says divine robe right here. And there's all sorts of different kinds of divine robes, but there's only a limited number of divine robes total, and only those people get access to this secret Discord. Now, another thing important to note about this is that there's a lot of big dicks in here in the NFT space. I think that like we have like AVAX founders and people like that are big holders of loot, and you've got a lot of people that are building out things that are generative based on these attributes that we're seeing here. So loot, okay, is more than just these tiles with these bullshit words on them, right? Loot for adventurers is actually like a base layer for people to come in and build on the metadata for literally whatever they can fucking imagine. And you can see here the floor price on loot has gone up substantially. We're at 4 Ethereum right now for the absolute most dog shit loot you can buy. We have 5,000 Ethereum traded. I absolutely think this is going to be a banger. So how did I actually approach this? How did I look at how did I look at this as somebody that's a total outsider, etc.? Like, well, I came into this ecosystem, and of course I wanted to get things that were rare. I wanted to get things that were scarce. Scarcity always drives value. And I also wanted to get things that may not seem rare, but could be ultra rare. Okay? And I'll show you guys the ones I picked up, and I'll show you the advantage of that, okay? No, and this is, look, I'm not doing anything else in NFTs. I'm not buying any more NFTs, but I am very, very glad that I had this experience, and I hope I sell this for $1 gazillion. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Full disclaimer, I didn't put life-changing money in this for me. I just wanted this experience, and I'm very, very glad I had this experience. So one thing that I missed about this NFT game that I was totally wrong about, when I spoke about DeFi in contrast to the NFT game in my argument with Jeebus, I was thinking that DeFi is the 4D chess, and that there's a lot of strategy and shit like that goes on in the DeFi space, and that there's really not in the NFT space. I couldn't have been more wrong about that, which is why I did this experience. I wanted to test my theses, and I did prove certain things about my thesis through this experience as well, and I'll get into that too. Okay, but looking at this, one of my first theses was there's not really any strategy to the NFT game. The first thing I noticed when I came into here and I started looking at all of these things was I felt like I was on a treasure hunt. Okay, there was 8,000 of these things, 8,000 of these things, and it was my job not only to be fast, but to determine like an algorithmic approach almost to get in here and find those rares, find the gems before everybody else, and make sure to purchase them. And I really, really enjoyed that aspect of it. I didn't understand that these NFTs had this kind of treasure hunt experience. And after having the treasure hunt experience, it does make me very sad because I love treasure hunts. That I didn't get into this a lot earlier on, where I could really develop an edge in this game, where I could really establish myself as a player in this game. It's absolutely a psychological game. It's tons of fun, at least the treasure hunting aspect of this, going through, looking for those rares. Do I make offers on this? Or do I just have to say fuck it and buy it for the price that it's listed at? There's all sorts of different risk-reward balancing and trade-offs and things like that. Yeah, it's totally like going into a thrift store and finding a Louis Vuitton. And I'm not even talking about a mint, because I've done some mints. There's this scratch-off lottery aspect, but this is beyond that. This is a treasure hunt, okay? And it's super fun. So the way I approached this at first was I started, and this is just, look, you have to understand I'm totally green in this, and I just want to go through like how my process evolved over the course of a few hours when I was on my first treasure hunt. So the first thing I did was I started coming through these and I started clicking random ones like this. And what I did, and I could see this is bag number 4882. I'm not necessarily interested in this bag. I'm just trying to find people that own loot, okay? So what I do is I'd say, okay, this bag is owned by this Aoki character. So what I'm gonna do, and it looks like right here, he owns one bag. So I'm gonna copy his address, right? And then I'm gonna come over here. Now, this is 0xinventory.app, and that is 0, the number, X, the letter, inventory.app. And what I can actually do here then is I can post this address, and it's going to populate this dude's loot. So now I can see here that this guy, this particular piece of loot is top 27% rarity. But there's also another interesting characteristic here that I decided that I was going to be mindful of, and this is this item score. Not only did I want to hunt for these items that were, rare, but I also wanted to hunt for items with a high item score because I didn't know how this item score was going to factor into value, but I was going to make the assumption that a higher item score coupled with high rarity was probably going to be a higher value than a lower item score coupled with high rarity. Whether that assumption ends up being correct or not is still up in the air. But that was my first approach to doing this, okay? And that's just how I approached it. So for an hour about, I continued to dive through these offerings, click random ones, get the address. Look, this guy has one piece of loot, it looks like. I'm gonna get the address. I'm gonna go to this 0xinventory.app. Damn it, hold on. And I can see here, this guy's got an item score 26, top 15% rarity. Maybe that's worth something, maybe it's not. Another thing that I wanted to look for is I noticed these occurrences of these +1 items were very rare as well. So everything I tried to buy, or everything that I bought, it was very important to me that I did get these +1s. Why? I really can't tell you. It was just kind of a feeling that I was acting on. Now, I started seeing the floor rising, and I knew that my approach to actually being able to find people with loot, because there's some addresses that I would enter, and these people would have like 20 pieces of loot, and I would start making offers on them, and the offers weren't getting accepted. But they did have some pieces of loot that, were offered for a price, and, I could just come in and pay that price. But I knew right then and there, when I started seeing that floor rising, that I needed to have a better approach to finding those high quality pieces of loot. So here's what I did. The people that owned this loot had the ability to mint a generative NFT based on this metadata, based on these properties, okay? So what I did, this first mint was called abstract loot. And I realized that, hey, it may be difficult to sort through all of this shit and continue taking this kind of random approach and hoping, that I stumble on gold. It may be worth it to try to potentially identify people that do have these high rarity, potentially high value items. Now, one of the interesting things about this is all the metadata here is shown. If I click on this, in opposition to the loot itself, we actually have properties to this, right? Which means that when I filter these items, I can actually search for things with particular properties. So like, let's say that I want something with the Divine Robe of Giants, okay? And I'm not quite sure where to find that piece. I can actually click Divine Robe of Giants here, and I can see what was minted, from that actual base metadata. So let's say I'm gonna click this now. Exit Liquidity owns this bag. So now I can take this guy's address and I can do the same thing. I can come to inventory, I can post this guy's address, and I can see this loot right here with the Divine Robe of Giants. Top 18%, item score 24. So then I started using that approach to actually identify things that are potentially rare, identify things that, that may end up being worth something in this ecosystem. And once again, the thesis here being that NFTs are in a mania, and the absolute absurdity of this loot idea is what's going to push it to absurd valuations. So that's kind of how my treasure hunt progressed. I think I ended up with some really, really nice pieces. Let's just see here. And I ended up with a couple of really cool pieces. I got this, and I got this because it's super rare. I wanted to have like a top 1% loot. It's got an extremely high item score relative to even some of the other extremely high ranked pieces. And I thought this would be a good bet. I also picked up that, like I said earlier, the Divine Robe piece, because I do think that those are going to have value. Notice that my Divine Robe also has 2+1s here. We have these two items as well. Top 29% on my Divine Robe, but once again, a relatively high item score. And then I picked up this gem. And this piece of loot, particular loot, has actually 1, 2, 3, 4 +1 items in one loot crate. And I hadn't seen that literally fucking anywhere else. So this right here, top 22%, but once again, focusing on that really, really high item score. How this plays out is kind of still up in the air. Am I going to get rich? Am I not going to get rich? I'm not quite sure. But one thing that I did want to point out was I really, really enjoyed the experience. I enjoyed the treasure hunt. It was a lot of fun. And now another thing that I get to observe is the birth of an NFT community, the growth of an NFT community. And I get to, that's crypto history. And I get to witness that history firsthand, which I thought was very important for me and my perspective on this whole situation, to actually see how these communities evolve, to actually see how these people, band together, build together, etc., etc. Now, a couple of things that I did notice, okay, and these things are supportive of my thesis. When I was making offers on these NFTs, I set aside around 30 wrapped Ethereum to do that with. And I had to determine, was I more interested in buying floor pieces, or was I going to go for the high quality? I made the decision to go for the high quality loot over the floor pieces, just because that was something that was more exciting to me. And I think that these high quality things have the potential to outperform the floor things. Not quite sure if they do or if they don't. That was just an assumption that I made. But while I was placing bids, and this supports one thing that I said in my debate, if you want to call it, with Jeebus yesterday, was that a lot of the liquidity in this NFT space isn't nearly as high as some people think it is. The reason being, with my modest 30 wrapped Ethereum that I had set aside to participate in this adventure, to have my treasure hunt, I noticed that I was able to make essentially unlimited offers on all of these things, as long as my offer didn't exceed the amount of wrapped Ethereum I had available. So if I have 30 wrapped Ethereum, I could technically make 10,000 worth of offers on things across this ecosystem. So if I'm coming and I'm looking at an NFT page and I see, you see right here, offers everywhere, top bid, top bid, top bid, top bid, top bid. There isn't nearly as much liquidity in this system as one would believe. And I do believe here the value is kind of being created out of nowhere. And I do think that this supports a liquidity crunch incoming at some point. But once again, I think I picked a good project because of the level of absurdity, the level of anger I felt when I saw that people were spending money on something this bullshit. I think that in itself will cause a lot of attention and a lot of eyes to come look at this. And then the people involved with the projects as well, of course, are building out an entire kind of metaverse ecosystem, club, all that kind of shit based on this base mechanic. So that is, one thing that I wanted to note, and one thing, that I was able to prove. The issue, when this does crash, is that I think it will become very apparent on things when you see that there's no top bids. And then what's going to happen is you're going to see people listing things below floor, and that just kind of becomes a snowball. I'm not saying it ends tomorrow. I'm not saying it ends next week. But at some point, the music stops 100%. In the meantime, I have enough exposure to hedge against being totally wrong about NFTs. If I am totally wrong about NFTs, I still get to be hedged against being wrong, and I still get to participate in some of this upside. If I'm right about NFTs, I didn't expose myself enough at this moment in time to this ecosystem to where it's going to make or break me. So really the point of me talking about this was just to share my experience, share that the joy I had on my treasure hunt, and also to say, that I was totally fucking wrong about some of my assumptions about this NFT space. Very, very, very glad I had this experience, and very, very much looking forward to seeing how this progresses. When AVAX. We already talked about AVAX, bro. Hold on just a moment. I need to do something. You guys will give me just a second. Okay. Back to charts. Okay, so that's really the only NFTs I'm going to play in, guys. Once again, I'm not trying to be an NFT influencer. I'm not trying to have significant exposure to this ecosystem. The only objective I had here was to have enough exposure to hedge against being 100% wrong, which is a possibility, and also to just have the experience. As somebody that's been in crypto for a while, it's important to me that I have these experiences, and that I can share this experience as somebody with crypto knowledge, coming into this and seeing this with fresh eyes, seeing this for the first time. So once again, very glad I had this experience. Please, God, please, please, please do not be shilling me NFTs left and right, because I'm not going to get invested big in NFTs. I just wanted to have this experience and to witness this. Okay, that's literally it. Now I think what we'll do, we've been going for about an hour now. I think we've covered what I wanted to cover. I think I'm going to open up the floor to questions for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. If you guys wanted me to chart something in particular, if you guys wanted me to talk about strategy, thesis, anything like that, I'm 100% willing to share that. Of course, not financial advice, but I'm here to provide my perspective, whether that be a good or bad perspective, if anybody is interested, and that sort of thing. And if nobody does have any questions or whatever, then we'll just call it a day, and we'll see you guys tomorrow on Delta Phi. Oh, actually there is one more thing I wanted to talk about. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that really quick. If I see any good questions, because look, I'm not just going to chart your shitcoin. That's not what I'm trying to do. Oh shit, no, that's nice. Somebody dumped on me. All right, we won't talk about that if we're going to be in price discovery to the downside. Not worth it. Can I explain how I draw my GAN fans? Sure, absolutely. Okay. Okay, so really there's two ways to draw these. Two ways that I do draw them. And you can apply this to any scale, okay? But there is an absolute method to the madness. Let's say that hypothetically, this is all we've seen so far, right here on PFI. And we're wondering how this market is going to develop. So my theory is that, I can use these GAN fans and I can apply them to that initial impulse. And that kind of provides a roadmap, if you will. The initial impulse provides a roadmap for what the market is going to develop into. So I can come down here and I can select this GAN fan tool. And there's two anchor points to this tool. The first of which is the bottom, okay, the beginning of this impulse, which is about right here, right? And then I want to connect the second anchor point to the point where the impulse stopped. So right there. So just based on this information alone, right? I now have a potential blueprint for what the rest of the market is going to look like. And you can see here, just based on that initial impulse, that this has mapped out absolutely fantastic levels that evolve with time for this asset, for PFI. Now, once again, right here, right here, right here, right here, it just goes on and on and on. And even look at this. The absolute top on this was this level. And I didn't have to do anything other than know what the first impulse looked like. So I drew my Gann fan. Now I'm coming and, you know, I'm looking at PFI. You know, I have these levels mapped out, these future levels. You can see that these levels are still holding up, right? And I can use these levels as kind of a framework for what's coming. So Gann fans are super, super, super interesting, and you can apply that on any scale, because I can also look at this in the sense that, you know, we have more information now. So I have this first impulse, yeah, and that was all I had. That was all I knew when I drew this first thing, and that mapped out future levels into price exploration, which was very, very important. It gave me the ability to determine what the levels would be in the future at locations that were, you know, kind of unexplored territory. So now I have the actual ability to where I can treat this entire leg as a first impulse. So I can actually keep that initial anchor point, and I can drag this second anchor point all the way up here. And you can see once again, now that I have very, very clean levels for this entire thing. I've treated this entire move as that first impulse now. And that gives me a location to potentially look for entries as well, which is what we spoke about earlier, around $1.30. Okay. Now you can choose to do a couple of things, you know, sometimes depending on how just ridiculous the wicks are in this situation. You know, sometimes I do like to draw the wicks or anchor on the actual candle bodies itself. You can fine tune this as the market evolves. Right now, you know, you could draw it on the wick, which you can see has really nice levels, or you can anchor it to the body here. A situation where it absolutely anchored to the body would be if the wick just came up here, because that's just some moron buying with high slippage at the top, right? But here, we'll see what happens. I think these levels are really nice here. And then two, for this fan to remain valid, for this trend to remain valid, this has to stay in the fan. So buying at the bottom of the fan here at around $1.30, it's kind of binary. Then I can say, I'm interested in PFI, I'm gonna buy $1.30. If it drops out of the fan, the entire fan becomes invalid. We can just go ahead and do away with it. And then we can wait for another initial impulse to develop, like we saw down here, and we can draw a totally brand new fan. But that's how this fan shit works. It's an absolutely amazing tool. I've used it for a while. The fan is fantastic at mapping out what the future of the market is going to look like, what those potential future levels could look like, based on a relatively small amount of information. Once again, that information being that first impulse. Am I in convex? No, you know, but I do have some Ethereum DeFi exposure in terms of Rook. I do have some Ethereum DeFi exposure in terms of Spell. I don't have nearly as heavy Ethereum exposure as I do AVAX ecosystem exposure right now, just because I do think that the AVAX ecosystem has a lot more growth opportunities than the Ethereum ecosystem, just because we have hundreds of millions of dollars incentives coming our way. For me, that's just kind of the no-brainer trade. How would I draw a fan on Apex? I would come down here and I would anchor it here at the bottom, right? And then I would also potentially draw my second anchor at the top of this impulse, you know, wherever that is. The main issue here is that it's very difficult to determine what is the top of that first impulse. So maybe it's right here, and this would be the proper way to anchor this. But at the same time, maybe this impulse hasn't really fully developed yet. I do like this as an anchor point, but maybe the impulse hasn't fully developed yet. maybe, you know, this comes up to here and then ends up dumping down to here, right? And then, you know, I could say, okay, you know, that's now, you know, where I want to be anchored. For now, somewhere like this is probably the best place to anchor that for now. With AVAX, I'm not really concerned about doing too much TA on it, although I do have this nice descending wedge drawn. With AVAX, more the thesis is that some meme coin here is going to go fucking ballistic. The distribution characteristics are fantastic. The liquidity is fantastic. The branding is fantastic. Not only is it 8 branded, but it's Apex. Apex is the top. Apex is the best. If you look up synonyms for that, it's the top of the food chain, okay? So my thesis more here is that because of the supply distribution characteristics, the low cap, the meme potential, all of those things, that this could be a top contender for the meme coin race. And because the liquidity is so much, you don't have the ability for plebs to come in and move this market. It's going to be whales. Whales are more likely to be those stronger hands, I think, at least in my opinion. And two, you know, it generates its own liquidity as well, which is something that's super interesting. So am I still pro staking versus farming with AVAX coins? Well, initially I didn't want to be a liquidity provider in a lot of these AVAX tokens, especially while they were having this initial hypergrowth. The main reason being impermanent loss. While something was in a hypergrowth condition, let's look at Yak for example, and Yak was just going absolutely fucking crazy. If I decided to be a farmer here during this initial hypergrowth, you know, when things were going absolutely crazy, look, this went almost 10x. If I decided to be a liquidity provider on Joe during this hypergrowth, I mean, we're looking at almost 70x here, right? The issue would have been extreme impermanent loss, especially on something like Joe. And I didn't want to expose myself to farming, to being a liquidity provider during those kind of conditions. Now that we've already seen this initial hypergrowth, I don't think that Joe has another 70x on it. So I think that being a liquidity provider is a good way to farm, especially with these incentives coming online. The farmings could be quite lucrative if the auto compounders can roll those rewards straight back into these things. Everything could go absolutely batshit. I don't think Joe has another 70x in it. And if I am willing to accept impermanent loss on this, considering the potential upside of Joe, considering the potential upside of what it's paired versus, if you run impermanent loss simulations, the impermanent loss just isn't that bad relative to the amount of farming rewards you can get at this point. Once again though, with Joe, I want the king entry. I want 65 cents. If I don't get 65 cents on Joe, I'm just gonna sit out and cope. It just is what it is. I wanna be an opportunist here, and I wanna be patient. Most importantly, I want to only act on the best opportunity, and that's it. If I don't get the best opportunity, then I sit out. I stay exposed to Yak because Yak doesn't have deflationary pressure. Any downside you see on Yak is a Yak holder that says, I'm getting the fuck out of Yak, and that's it. Other potential downside for all coins in this ecosystem, and now that's Yak, Joe, whatever you're looking at, comes from actual AVAX itself. If AVAX does retrace back to these volume weighted average price levels, namely the quarterly level or the yearly level, it will drag everything down against it. So when I say that I do expect AVAX to outperform and why I have heavy AVAX exposure in the meantime is because I'm sure you've all heard this meme, up in USD, right? Now, the issue with being up in USD, because look, up in USD it's not so bad, you know, you're still making money, but the issue is that you're outperformed by whatever the base asset is. In this case, AVAX. And we can see that here. If we actually come look at the charts, let's look at Yak versus AVAX. So it's my expectation that, you know, we have made this, we have kind of broken the parabola here, okay? And if AVAX rips face, if AVAX goes to, you know, $100, $150, you have to consider and keep in mind, what is this Yak AVAX chart going to look like? What is this Joe AVAX chart going to look like? If Joe isn't going to be making new highs versus AVAX, if Joe is going to be underperforming AVAX, why would I accept, you know, US dollar upside on something like Joe, on something like Yak, on something like anything really? Why would I expect that US dollar upside when it would just be smarter to be in AVAX, period? I don't want to sit here and just be up in USD. That's why I got a fat AVAX bag, because if AVAX outperforms, I still get to capture that upside, and then, you know, maybe I can rotate into other things as those charts versus AVAX look like they'll begin to be outperformers. Just want to be very clear about that. I do think that AVAX, at least in the next couple of weeks, has a lot of potential to outperform this. Even if everything's going up in dollar value, I think that AVAX could outperform. If I go in to USDT, would I keep it on Avalanche? Absolutely. For the time being, you know, especially with these liquidity mining programs that have all but, you know, been admitted to at this point, I think that I can stay in USDT, and even if I'm just sitting there, I think that there's going to be opportunities for me to farm over the next couple of weeks and take advantage of that. Yeah, and Taki was right. You know, with Matic ecosystems, the coins outperform first, then Matic outperform, and then I think that there were some opportunities for coins to outperform Matic again, and I think that we're seeing that play out here. But once again, you know, I don't know the future. You know, I just know that we have a parabolic advance here against AVAX. That parabolic advance was broken, and now we could run into this situation where maybe Joe is increasing in value versus the dollar. But it's underperforming AVAX, so logically, why would I be in something that does have those inflationary characteristics? Why would I be in something that is being farmed, even though it's probably one of the best tokens in the ecosystem, if I can just hold straight up AVAX, which is significantly more liquid, and capture more upside than I could with Joe? Do I recommend AVAX for small plantonks like me? You know, I'm not recommending anything. You know, you're going to have to make your own decisions here. But I will say that in the Ethereum climate right now, it's impossible for the little guy to operate. So if the little guy wants a chance at making it, you know, they're going to have to look at the Solana ecosystem, which I believe is probably cheaper than everything. If you want those really cheap transactions that are fast, that you're able to do anything from, look at the Phantom ecosystem, look at the Matic ecosystem, look at the AVAX ecosystem. They're all cheap, they're all fast, they're all badass. There's a lot of opportunity for the little guy to come and participate in whatever you want to participate in without having to pay hundreds of dollars in gas. I've had zero exposure to Joe for a while now. And you can actually see here, if I come to my Twitter profile, I'll show you where I said that that was going to be the case. And this is August 27th. This is when I sold my Joe. I said that I think that our AVAX shitcoin dip could be coming soon. I'm going to play the lottery and try to get some good entries in certain things. Joe was among those things. We're looking at August 27th here. So we can go ahead and look at this Joe token. And August 27th was right here. So somewhere in this area was where I exited my Joe. And I'm glad that I did, because I was right. AVAX is going to be outperforming these tokens, at least in the near term. So once again, don't find yourself a community member. There's a lot of volatility. There's a lot of movement here. If you have profit that's unrealized and that's significant to you, at least de-risk, okay? At least take that profit off the table. You're never, ever, ever going to regret taking profit on anything, because profit comes and goes. When you're unrealized, when you have gains and those are unrealized, you have to capture them. We had some meme tokens do crazy multiples and people didn't take any profit. That's just insane. That's insane to me. You know, why wouldn't you go ahead and at least de-risk yourself? Now, a really good strategy and a really easy way to make sure that you're continuously taking profits is that if you ever get 2x on something, go ahead and sell half of it and de-risk that position. Okay, if you can go ahead, you get 2x, you sell half of it right then and there, what you can actually do is have a free bag of something. And let's say I put 100 AVAX on something, it goes 2x, I sell half. Not only do I have that 100 AVAX that I started with now, I also have a free bag. It doesn't matter if that bag goes up, it doesn't matter if that bag goes down. I've already 100% de-risked from it. So that's something that's really important to remember going forward. You know, getting that upside is very important, guys. You know, don't get me wrong. Having strong hands is very important, but it's also very important to realize that profits don't stay around forever, and that when those profit opportunities present themselves, you have to de-risk as quickly as possible, and you have to make sure that no matter what happens in your position, that you're still going to be comfy, that you're not going to draw down, that you're not going to be that guy that was up 5x but is now down 50%. It's just a bad situation to find yourself in. And with that, I think that's fantastic advice. Please take it to heart. Okay, if you are doing these things, you have to protect that downside or you're never going to catch massive upside. And once again, with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this stream. Now, tomorrow we do have Delta Phi. We're going to be talking about Phantom. We're going to be talking about Solana. We're going to be talking about Avalanche. We're going to be talking about it all. And I think you guys will love this show if you haven't checked it out. It's myself. It's Random Task. If you guys are Hxro Labs fans, you're already very familiar with Random Task. It's Dan Gunsberg and Rob Levy, who are both long-time market professionals. So make sure to keep your eyes out for that. And let me just go ahead and check on the scheduling for this. We have this set up for, let's see here. Hold on, guys, I'm trying to find this. I would imagine, I think it's going to be sometime around 4 p.m. CST. You know, a similar time to when I started Shitcoin Church today, maybe about 30 minutes later for the launch. But if you guys aren't already subscribers to Hxro Labs, please make sure to do that. You can find links to all our shit below. It looks like we do need to update these videos and add the Discord link below. That Telegram has since been depreciated. Follow Hxro Labs on Twitter. Subscribe to our channel. We've got tons of content coming your way, covering all ecosystems, covering macro, micro, shitcoins, options. If it's markets, we're going to be covering it. And please, if you are enjoying this content, hit that like button, give me a thumbs up on this shit so I can keep my job. That would be much appreciated. Other than that, you know, I'll see you guys in the trading pit. I'll see you guys on the bridge. Best of luck to everyone here. I feel like we're gonna make it, but please protect that downside, develop a strategy. Don't be a fucking moon boy. Constantly be thinking about how I can lock in those profits and how I can push forward with no risk. That 2x strategy is an amazing way to do that, guys, and an absolutely amazing way. If you can follow some rules and you can develop a framework, I think that you'll make it. But guys, thank you so much for being here. Hit that thumbs up, and I'll see you tomorrow on Delta Phi. Until next time, adios.